Chapter 6592. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was paying attention to the people beside Bai Luchuan. There were many people around him, but they were clearly not Zhong Yiluan's group. This made her feel a little more at ease. However, this fellow was only participating in the demon-slaying competition, yet he had brought so many people with him. In comparison, when she heard that Bai Qingli had come alone, she understood why Bai Luchuan had always been unable to defeat Bai Qingli. Under the protection of so many people, it would be strange if Bai Liuchuan's improvement was faster than Bai Qingli's. Of all the people, the one she feared the most was the azure-robed man in front of her. At this level of cultivation, it was impossible to tell his age from his appearance. The only thing she could be sure of was that this man was older than them and his strength was extremely extraordinary. Bai Luchuan saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun Che were ignoring him and his expression turned ugly. He immediately said, "Attack, kill them and avenge Guan Yi." As soon as he said that, his 20-odd subordinates surrounded Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun Che almost immediately. "Today, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings." Looking at the 20-odd people around her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed slightly as a grave expression appeared on her face. Di Beichen's gaze also quietly turned behind. In the current situation, it was clearly impossible to fight head-on. The only way was to leave first. With more than 20 people, even if their strength was outstanding, it was impossible for them to win. "Beichen, you're here?" When Ziran and the others saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had not returned after so long, they all rushed in their direction. With their strength, it should be easy for them to deal with those two fellows. However, since they had not come for so long, it meant that other problems might have occurred. When they arrived, they discovered that Beichen and Yun Che were surrounded by more than 20 people. Not far away was Guan Yi's strength, while Yun Xiaoman was tightly leaning on another person's side. They immediately understood what was going on. "I didn't expect their reinforcements to be so fast." A hint of coldness appeared in Bai Li Yanche's eyes. He had never seen this guy before, but he already had a guess in his mind. Bai Luchuan looked at the 5 people who had suddenly appeared in surprise. It was fine if it was Gong Jun, but where did these 4 fellows come from? "Brother Bai, they are in cahoots." Yun Xiaoman looked at Bai Luchuan nervously. "You must avenge Brother Yi. None of these fellows are good people. If we let them succeed, who knows how much trouble we will have in the future." Bai Liuchuan's eyes were sinister and vicious as he said with an ashen face, "Kill them all. TSK TSK TSK. The moment he opens his mouth he wants to kill everyone. This man really knows how to show off." Ziran shook his head and sighed. "However, we're not scared. You won't cry until you see the coffin." Bai Luchuan sneered. "A mere 7 people actually dare to spout nonsense here. Why don't you think about how to kneel and beg me for mercy later? If you perform well, I might spare your lives. I realize that the people of Xi'an City really like to dream. One is like this, 2 are like this. I didn't expect this guy to be like this too." Shengguan Yingying sneered. "Kill them. Quickly do it." Boom. Chapter 6593. "Boss, should we think of a way to blast a way out and take the opportunity to escape?" Gong Jun stood beside Di Beichen and suggested in a low voice, "There are so many of them. We are definitely no match for them. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Bai Luchuan had already guessed their thoughts when he saw Gong Jun's expression. He immediately said, "I want all of them to die here. None of them can escape." "Don't worry, young master. None of them will be able to escape," the azure-robed man said. "Beichen, this fellow's strength is probably not simple. We have to think of a way to leave first," Ziran said in a low voice. "Under such circumstances, it would be unwise to fight head-on." Di Beichen nodded. "Think of a way to leave first." At that moment, the azure-robed man had already charged towards Di Beichen. He could already tell that he was the strongest among all of them. As long as he could control him, the others would be much easier to deal with. The ferocious fist blasted through the air and headed straight for Di Beichen's face. Di Beichen took a step back and countered with a palm strike. Bang! Di Beichen retreated more than 10 steps as the solemn expression on his handsome face deepened. Upon seeing this scene, the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and company changed slightly. They knew Di Beichen's strength very well. As Senior Zhong Li's favorite disciple, his combat strength had always been extraordinary among cultivators of the same level. Ordinary cultivators of the same level were no match for him, but the other party was able to repel him with a single punch. It was enough to show how terrifying his strength was. This person's strength is probably not far from breaking through to the elementary immortal realm. Ling Er's expression was complicated. Even at a certain distance she could sense the other party's tyrannical aura. Clearly, this man's strength surpassed most of the cultivators participating in the demon slaughter competition. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze landed on Bai Luchuan. As soon as this person appeared, she had already sensed that his strength was extraordinary. It was likely that this person was specially invited by Bai Luchuan. Yun Xiaoman had already regained her senses after her initial panic. After understanding that her life was no longer in danger, she noticed the azure-robed man and could not help but ask, "Brother Bai, who is this man? He seems to be very strong." "He's my most capable subordinate." A smug look appeared on Bai Liuchuan's face. "His cultivation talent is extremely strong. Back then I saw that he was in dire straits and was being pursued, so I saved him. After that, he has been protecting my safety. What happened in the tunnel earlier was too strange. I felt that something was wrong, so I called him over. I didn't expect him to come in handy so soon." "I see." Bai Luchuan nodded slightly. "It's a pity that I was still a step too late. Otherwise Guani wouldn't have. Brother Bai, this isn't your fault. It's all because of these guys. They are the culprits." Yun Xiaoman's eyes were sinister. "Only by killing them can we avenge Brother Yi." A hint of coldness appeared in Bai Liuchuan's eyes. "Don't worry, none of them will be able to escape today. Beichen, you have to be careful." Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the other party's strength and said worriedly. Chapter 65-94. What should I do? There are so many of them, I can't hold on for long. A trace of panic appeared on Shangguaning Ying's face. Her cultivation had improved a lot compared to before, but facing the attacks of 3 cultivators at the same time, she really paled in comparison. She had been suppressed all the time. If she wasn't careful, she would make a lot of mistakes and the other party would seize the opportunity and be in danger. In just a few short moves she was almost hit in the vitals. If this continued, her good luck wouldn't last long. When Xiren's brows were also tightly knitted together. He also tried to break out of a path, but to no avail. These fellows firmly sealed him off, not giving him the slightest chance to escape. Not to mention Ying, even if all of them continued like this, they could lose their lives at any time. When Bai Luchuan saw that everyone was being suppressed and beaten, a trace of pride appeared on his face. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded not far away. "After searching for so long, I still haven't met any of you. I didn't expect to see such a scene when I arrived." Hearing this familiar voice, everyone's eyes lit up. They turned around and saw Mo Yunjue, Zhongli Mu, Di Xiaofeng, Bailey Yunyan, Xiao Xuanzi and Xiao Hua all appear. Bai Lulu also turned his head. The 6 people in front of him were also very unfamiliar. He had never seen them before. Who are these people? Yun Xiaoman looked at the people who suddenly appeared in puzzlement. The other party's words were somewhat inexplicable. She didn't understand whether they were enemies or friends. Bai Luchuan didn't understand at first, but when his gaze fell on Di Xiaofeng's face, he quickly glanced at Di Beichen. After noticing the slightly similar expression, he understood. These 2 people were obviously brothers. "Since you're already here, don't just stand there and watch. Come and help." When Xiren looked at Mo Yunjue and the others' calm and composed appearance and couldn't help but shout, "Aren't we here now?" Di Xiaofeng chuckled and his figure flashed into the battle circle. His figure was elegant, and his handsome face had a trace of playfulness. "We haven't been apart for long. How did you offend so many people the moment you arrived?" Zhong Limu could not help but sigh. "I've been in the demon slaughtering mountain range for a few days, and this is the first time I've seen such a large group. You guys really know how to find trouble. I think I still have to follow you guys. Grandpa said that we shouldn't be afraid of causing trouble, but I haven't caused any trouble yet. I'm really ashamed of myself." Looking at Zhong Limu's serious expression, the corners of everyone's mouths twitched slightly. "Senior Zhongli, are you really not tricking your own grandson? Who would teach someone like that?" Bai Liuchuan's expression turned ugly when he saw these people join the battle without any hesitation. He never knew that these guys actually had so many helpers. Back then it was only a team of 3 people. In the blink of an eye, it had become a team of 13 people. No one knew if there would be more helpers behind them. With this in mind, Bai Luchuan turned somewhat anxious. He said, "Don't show any mercy when you attack. End the battle quickly." "Yes." At this moment, Di Beichen was engaged in a fierce battle with the man. The other party's cultivation was slightly higher than his, and his combat power was also very strong. Chapter 65-95. Every move of the man was filled with ferocity. There was no sloppiness and every move was meant to take one's life. However, Di Baichen wasn't any weaker than others in this area. He had often been on the brink of life and death over the years. If it was a competition of ruthlessness, he wasn't afraid at all. The man clearly didn't expect Di Baichen to be such a ruthless character. He was ruthless enough, and it was common for him to injure the enemy while injuring himself. Ordinary cultivators would easily be frightened by such an aura. However, the man in front of him didn't show any fear. On the contrary, his attacks were abnormally ruthless. That murderous aura was even more terrifying than his. It was like a devil. With a flip of his hand he could create clouds and rain. With a monstrous domineering and arrogant aura, he was like a monarch in the dark night, causing fear in people's hearts. The other party was clearly younger than him, but even he couldn't help but be frightened by such an aura. Boom! The two of them collided once again. Their bodies retreated a few steps, and their expressions became increasingly ruthless. Green lotus fire. The man's hand seals flipped, and vigorous elemental energy swept out, ruthlessly covering Di Baichen. The surrounding temperature seemed to rise at this moment. Raging flames appeared out of thin air, bringing with them an astonishing temperature. Once surrounded by the flames, one would definitely be burned to ashes. Raging dark energy swept out like a giant net in the dark night, enveloping the ball of flames. Crackle. Sparks flew in all directions as the two forces tore at each other. The surrounding aura was extremely oppressive, as if it would explode at any moment. When Bai Luchuan saw that Di Baichen was able to fight with the man in green to such an extent, a look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. He knew very well how strong the man was. Up until now he had never met anyone who was his match. However, Di Baichen, who he had never taken seriously, was able to fight with him for so long. It was enough to show that his strength couldn't be underestimated. He is indeed a formidable opponent. Bai Luchuan narrowed his eyes, and the murderous aura in his heart grew stronger. This fellow had to be dealt with as soon as possible. Otherwise he would become a huge problem in the future. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang was facing the siege of two cultivators. Bang bang bang. The chi forces continued to collide, erupting into terrifying shockwaves. Even though the two of them wanted to suppress Bailey Hongzhuang, they found that the woman in front of them was too agile. It was too difficult to pin her down. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. Although the two of them were not weak, they were no match for her in a one-on-one fight. But now that the two of them had joined forces, their battle prowess had already suppressed her. She had to think of a way to control one of them so that she could defeat them one by one. When this thought appeared in her mind, another thought flashed through her mind. In the next moment, the formation stone was thrown out, and a trapping array was formed. The man was rushing forward, but he didn't expect a barrier to block him. Caught off guard, he fell to the ground. An attack smashed onto the barrier, injuring his own hand instead. He quickly stood up and immediately realized that he was trapped in the array. He could only immediately attack the array in an attempt to break out. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the man indifferently before attacking the other person. Chapter 65-96. The man naturally knew that once he was trapped, the other person would not be able to hold on for much longer. He immediately attacked the trapping array with all his might. However, the trapping array which he had thought would be easily broken through unleashed a power beyond his expectations. Even after a few attacks landed on it, the trapping array did not break. Ah! A blood-curdling scream sounded. The other man had already fallen under Bailey Hongzhuang's sharp sword. Hearing this, the man could not help but panic. When he turned his head, he realized that the other man had fallen in the blink of an eye. When he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, his heart was filled with a sense of dread. This woman. Her battle prowess far surpassed cultivators of the same level. When Xiren and the rest were moaning incessantly as they were surrounded by many cultivators. They were clearly not afraid of a one-on-one battle, but they had lost because of their disadvantage in numbers. This made him very unhappy. Suddenly he saw Bailey Hongzhuang casually throw out a trapping array, trapping the man in it. His eyes immediately lit up. I'm so stupid. Why didn't I think of this move? A smile appeared on Xiren's face. It was indeed difficult to deal with two people at the same time. However, as long as he could trap one of them and get rid of the other, wouldn't it be much easier to deal with this one? In the next moment, Xiren waved his hand and crushed the array stone in his hand. A trapping array was quietly formed and trapped one of the cultivators within it. When the man had noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, He was feeling very conflicted. He never thought that this move would land on him in the blink of an eye. "Let's see how you're going to work together now." When Xiren chuckled. His speed suddenly increased and he quickly attacked the other cultivator. Bang bang bang. Different types of yuan qi collided with each other and the surrounding trees were all destroyed. The lush green area had long been flattened to the ground. The other cultivator noticed that Xiren's attacks had suddenly become more violent, like a violent storm. Although this man was smiling all the time, his attacks were not careless at all. Every move was aimed at a vital point. Xiren had been cultivating with Senior Yu Hong all this time. Senior Yu Hong was very skilled in swordsmanship. During this period of time when he was cultivating with his master, his attainments in swordsmanship were also constantly improving. The moment he held the sword in his hand, his entire aura changed. There was no longer the joking and casual attitude he had before. Instead, there was a trace of coldness and sharpness. The sword was like the sharpest weapon in the world. Wherever it passed, everything was cut in half. Bai Luchuan was originally standing by the side casually watching the battle with a huge disparity in strength, but when he saw the combat strength these fellows unleashed, his expression gradually changed. If Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were the only ones who performed unusually, that would be fine. However, he discovered that none of these fellows were simple. Needless to say, the black-robed man's temperament was cold like ice. His baleful aura spread out, and every move he made was ruthless. Just a glance from him was enough to cause fear in people's hearts. The battle prowess of the other purple-clothed man and woman could not be underestimated either. After observing them for a short while, he discovered that the strength of these two people was truly astonishing. Chapter 6597. As for the man and woman who were fooling around, they looked very casual when they were talking, but after they started fighting, it was as if they had changed their appearance. It was impossible to connect them with their previous appearance. The most eye-catching one was the young man who looked the youngest. He was obviously very young, but the combat power he unleashed was the most terrifying. He alone was able to restrain 3 people. Moreover, he was not at a disadvantage under the siege of 3 people. This was simply terrifying. These guys, how can their strength be so terrifying? Bai Luchuan frowned. He had originally treated these guys as grasshoppers that he could casually crush. Now that he saw them with his own eyes, he realized that these guys were not simple. With such powerful strength and appearing in a group, they were probably not rogue cultivators. At the thought of this, Bai Luchuan's expression became very ugly. It was not that he had never seen such a situation before. If the other party was a disciple of a sect who had gone out to train and provoke these guys, the consequences would be extremely troublesome. After seeing Xiren and the others use the trapping array, a trace of worry appeared on Yun Xiaoman's face. Brother Bai, they used this trapping array so their advantage in numbers is weakening. Upon hearing that, Bai Luchuan snapped out of his thoughts. Indeed, the trapping arrays had trapped the cultivators one after another. Idiot, they can use trapping arrays. Can't you use them? As Bai Luchuan's voice fell, a portion of the cultivators also used trapping arrays, trapping Xiao Xuanzi and the others in it. However, there was still a portion of the cultivators whose faces were full of hesitation. Array stones were also very expensive. If they were not array masters, they would have to spend a lot of money to buy an array stone. At this moment, using it to deal with these guys was really not worth it. Feel free to use it. I'll compensate you later. Bai Luchuan noticed this scene and shouted, "As long as you kill these guys, I'll reward you well." As soon as these words were said, all the cultivators' eyes lit up. In an instant, trapping arrays appeared one after another, flickering with different attribute lights, illuminating the world even more brilliantly. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack landed on the trapping array. With a slight cracking sound, a crack appeared on the barrier. With her second attack, the trapping array immediately collapsed. Xiren and the others were not slow either. On the other side, when everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had only used 2 moves to break the trapping array, their expressions became even more complicated. Because their 2 moves could not break the trapping array in front of them at all. What was going on? Everyone was at a loss. Was it that their combat strength was inferior, or was the other party's trapping array? After Shangguan Yingying cast a trap array, she was surprised to find that this trap array lasted for a shorter time than the one when Xiren had cast. Her expression immediately became solemn. I'm afraid this man's strength is stronger than the others. The speed at which he broke through the trapping array is faster than the others. Seeing Shangguan Yingying's expression as if she was facing a great enemy, when Xiren couldn't help but chuckle, Don't be nervous, it's not like that. Chapter 65-98. When Xiren looked at Shangguan Yingying in embarrassment, but the smile on his face remained bright. Shangguan Yingying, who was originally confused, immediately understood when she heard this. She couldn't help but roll her eyes. Didn't you say that your trapping array is about the same as Beichen's? There's not much difference in the first place. It's just that there's a slight difference in time. When Xiren's face was calm. Isn't the strength of this trapping array dependent on the strength it withstands and the time it is trapped? Your trapping array is much weaker than the one created by Beichen. Shangguan Yingying had also learned how to create trapping arrays, so she naturally understood the difference. As the saying goes, a slight mistake can lead to a huge error. Although it was only a moment, this short period of time could sometimes affect the outcome. Xiren smiled faintly. Beichen's research in this area is deeper than mine. I'll study it for a while more and I'll probably catch up. I hope so. Shangguan Yingying had a look of disbelief, but there was still a hint of a smile in the depths of her eyes. She understood in her heart that when Xiren had already made great progress compared to before. Moreover, she had seen how hard he had worked. Naturally, she was clear about it. As trapping arrays were activated one after another, Bai Luchuan didn't care at first. With the wealth of these fellows, it was impossible for there to be too many trapping arrays. Even if both sides stalled for more time, the final outcome couldn't be changed. The only pity was that it was a pity for these array stones. If they could get rid of these fellows earlier, then the array stones would be theirs. Such a huge commotion attracted many cultivators. Everyone was waiting to see the final outcome. Later, when they saw that Di Beichen and company had not returned for a long time, Bai Li Yanche and company had also disappeared, they were somewhat curious. When they heard the commotion not far away, some people became curious and ran over to take a look. Isn't it just a trapping array? Let's see how many they have. Bai Luchuan threw the array stones on him to the other cultivators. In terms of foundation, he wasn't afraid of these fellows at all. When the onlookers arrived, they heard Bai Luchuan's words. Immediately their expressions turned very interesting. Ignoring everything else, I think Bai Luchuan will definitely lose in terms of the number of trapping arrays. When Gong Jun was doing business, he had a lot of array stones. Although he bought a lot of them, from the looks of it, he probably still has a lot on him. No matter how rich Bai Luchuan is, he can't compare to a shop owner. This isn't a battle. This is a competition of who has more money. Everyone was secretly speechless. Fights between cultivators were the most common thing on a daily basis, but this was the first time they had seen such a way of fighting in their lives. It was really too unbelievable. When Bai Luchuan heard everyone's conversation, he couldn't help but be taken aback. His gaze landed on Gong Jun, who had been hiding, and he suddenly understood. Xiaoman, they said Gong Jun is doing business here? Hearing this, Yun Xiaoman nodded and immediately told her about Gong Jun's business. As she said more and more, Bai Luchuan's face turned darker and darker. If he had known earlier, why would he have let everyone compete like this? Wasn't it obvious that he couldn't win? Chapter 65-99. Yun Xiaoman didn't notice Bai Luchuan's ugly expression. She only spoke her mind. Upon hearing this, Bai Luchuan's expression turned slightly better. His gaze landed on Gong Jun. To him, wasting some cultivation resources was nothing. Obtaining points was the most important thing. Are you saying that everyone has been using points to buy cultivation resources from Gong Jun? Yun Xiaoman nodded. That's right. Gong Jun's business has been booming these days. Many cultivators have bought things from him. Although the number of points isn't clear, it must be shocking. That's good. Bai Luchuan's face slowly curled into a smile. He didn't expect to receive such a big gift today. Due to the tunnel incident, many of their cultivators had died. As a result, their points had been affected. He was thinking about how to make up for this gap. From the looks of it, with Gong Jun and company's points, all of this could be made up for. In the next instant, Bai Luchuan couldn't help but move. He charged straight at Gong Jun. The others were already restrained. Gong Jun was undoubtedly the weakest. As long as he took the opportunity to capture Gong Jun, these fellows would definitely be affected. No one expected Bai Luchuan, who had been watching the show from the side, to suddenly make a move. They also didn't expect him to charge straight at Gong Jun. When Gong Jun noticed Bai Luchuan's actions, he panicked and hurriedly dodged to the side. At that moment, Di Beichen was in full swing with the azure-clothed man. Both of them were using all their skills. Perhaps it had been a long time since they had seen an evenly matched opponent. The two of them were sweating profusely as they fought, understanding their differences. Boss. After exchanging blows with Bai Luchuan, Gong Jun understood that his combat strength was inferior to this fellow's. Although Bai Luchuan was also a hedonistic son, his strength was not simple. If it wasn't for Bai Qingli suppressing him, his reputation would definitely be much louder than it was now. Now that he had made a move against Gong Jun, the latter was naturally no match for him. Hearing Gong Jun's exclamation, Di Baichen also noticed the situation behind him. He immediately wanted to shake off the person who was fighting with him. However, the azure-clothed man clearly knew what Di Baichen was thinking. His attacks became even more intense, forcing Di Baichen to fight him without being distracted. A smug look appeared in Bai Luchuan's eyes. After a few feints, he directly attacked Gong Jun's vital gate. Gong Jun's figure kept retreating. That terrifying power kept getting closer and closer, and his heart became even more flustered. Just as Bai Luchuan's attack was about to land on Gong Jun, a hand suddenly stopped the attack. Bai Luchuan looked up and realized that the black-robed man had unknowingly appeared in front of him. The man's opponent had already been trapped by both the trapping formation and the illusory formation. It was obvious that he would not be able to break free for a while. "You're courting death," Bai Luchuan roared. Mo Yunjue's voice slowly sounded, but it was directed at Di Baichen. "Don't worry. Leave this to me." When Di Baichen heard this voice, he immediately felt relieved. He knew Mo Yunjue's strength very well. As Senior Meng's favorite student, his strength had advanced by leaps and bounds in the past year, astonishing everyone. Chapter 6600. Bai Luchuan looked at Mo Yunjue with a hint of fear in his eyes. Previously, he had already discovered that Mo Yunjue's strength was not simple. His lightning attribute power was superb. Not only that, but he was also somewhat different from the others. This was because his moves were fatal. Although the others' attacks were also aimed at the famous sects, Mo Yunjue's moves were the true killing moves. He had seen such a situation before. It was like an assassin's organization. The people inside often didn't make a move, but once they made a move they would definitely take someone's life. If he wasn't wrong, this black-clothed man should be from this sect. Mo Yunjue's gaze landed on Bai Luchuan. He had always been a man of few words, and there was no need to say much during a battle. While Bai Luchuan was still thinking, Mo Yunjue's attack came crashing down. With a wave of his hand, heavenly thunder immediately resounded. With a raise of his hand, bolts of violent lightning struck towards Bai Luchuan. Amidst the lightning that filled the sky, the unsmiling Mo Yunjue was like a god of lightning. His aura was awe-inspiring, causing one to gasp in amazement. When facing Bai Luchuan, Mo Yunjue did not underestimate him at all. His master had taught him earlier that when he was in the lower planes, he might encounter many hedonistic sons who were not strong but had many people protecting them. However, it was different in the immortal realm. Hedonistic sons still existed, but these hedonistic sons had extraordinary strength and could not be underestimated. This was because a hedonistic son with no ability would find it difficult to survive in this place. When Bai Luchuan saw Mo Yunjue use such a ruthless move, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. However, his reaction speed was extremely fast. His body nimbly dodged the lightning. At the same time, he waved his hands and an earth wall suddenly formed. He raised his right hand slightly and the earth wall leaped into the air, blocking the lightning. In the next moment, his origin power surged again, and the flat ground suddenly turned into waves, rolling towards Mo Yunjue. Mo Yunjue's eyes narrowed slightly. Bai Luchuan's understanding of the earth element was extremely deep. He took 2 steps back and was about to block the earth wall when the solid ground beneath his feet suddenly turned into a swamp. The quagmire controlled his body, and the earth wave came at him at an even faster speed. Die. A smug look appeared in Bai Luchuan's eyes. These damn fellows had always looked down on him. He wanted to let them know his strength. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Mo Yunjue was in a precarious situation, she quickly rushed over. Just as she arrived, a violent bolt of lightning appeared in the man's hand. The bright light was dazzling in this part of the world. Accompanied by the unique sizzling sound of thunder, it was filled with an extremely terrifying power. He pressed his hands together slightly, and the lightning gradually retracted. However, the sound that came out was even more shocking. Boom. Mo Yunjue's movements were extremely fast. The lightning in his hand met the incoming earth wave. Just as he was about to attack, Bailey Hongzhuang had already stretched out her hand. Mo Yunjue held the soft and boneless hand. A force attacked him, and he escaped from the quagmire at lightning speed. An earth-shattering sound was heard. Everyone felt the ground beneath their feet tremble for an instant, and a terrifying wave of air swept out. The earth wave blotted out the sky and lightning flashed in the sky. Chapter 66:01. A hint of fear appeared in Bai Liuchuan's eyes when he saw the terrifying lightning flash. The lightning attribute had always been the most destructive among the various attributes. Mo Yunjua's actions just now were filled with clues. At a glance he could tell that it wasn't simple. He naturally couldn't take the risk. Rumble. A deafening sound constantly resounded as layers of earth exploded. Sand flew in the air, stirring up a huge cloud of dust. Even though Bai Liuchuan had retreated immediately, he couldn't help but be affected by the force. The terrifying blast sent his body flying 100 meters away. This guy's strength is actually so strong. Bai Liuchuan frowned slightly. He had never taken it to heart when Guanyi had told him that Di Beichen's strength wasn't simple. From his point of view, the reason why Guanyi had lost so miserably to the two of them was because of Bailey Hongzhuang's poison. And now, after understanding the strength of these people, he understood that their strength wasn't simple. Clearly the other party had fewer people than them, but they couldn't subdue them. This proved that every one of them had the strength to fight above their level. From his point of view, this was impossible, but all of this had happened. It was unbelievable. At that moment, Bai Liuchuan couldn't help but feel apprehensive. For one or two cultivators to be so outstanding, it could be said that they were talented. However, for everyone in the team to be so impressive, it definitely wasn't something that could be explained by talent. This proved that this group of people definitely had a very powerful faction behind them. Under the nurturing of this faction, their strength had grown to such an extent. His gaze shifted slightly as he looked at the azure-robed man. He saw that he was still fighting with Di Beichen. He knew the azure-robed man's strength too well. Up to now he had never met anyone who was his match. However, Di Beichen had never been at a disadvantage from beginning to end. On the contrary, from the azure-robed man's expression, he knew that Di Beichen was a truly formidable opponent. He knew that the azure-robed man still had a killer move and hadn't used his full strength. However, Di Beichen didn't look simple either. Perhaps he hadn't used his true strength. If that was the case, it might not be a good thing to continue fighting. Hongzhuang, thank you. Mo Yunjua looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile, his icy face melting like snow. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. If you really want to thank someone, I should be the one thanking you. Just as the two of them were about to continue attacking, Bai Liuchuan's voice suddenly sounded. Let's go. This sudden decision was beyond everyone's expectations. Even the green-robed man and the others doubted if they had heard wrongly. Why did they suddenly stop? However, Bai Liuchuan didn't explain. After making his decision, he left. Seeing this, the other cultivators no longer had the intention to fight and followed suit. Big Brother Bai, wait for me. Yun Xiaoman quickly chased after him, her face full of confusion. It wasn't just them. Bailey Hongzhuang and company also looked at Bai Liuchuan's departing back in surprise. What was wrong with this fellow all of a sudden? Everyone looked at each other and did not continue to attack. Chapter 66:02. What happened to Bai Liuchuan all of a sudden? Why would he suddenly stop at such a time? It doesn't match his style at all. I don't know. He stopped for no reason. Could it be that the black-clothed man seriously injured him just now? It doesn't seem like it on the surface, but the truth is unknown. Everyone sighed with emotion. Only then did they disperse. They hoped that this battle would be a fight to the death. Whether it was Di Beichen's group or Bai Liuchuan's group, they were all powerful opponents to obtain the top 10. It would be best if both sides were injured. This way their chances of obtaining the top 10 would be much higher. However, since both sides had stopped, their hopes naturally couldn't be fulfilled. When Xiren's eyes revealed a trace of doubt, why did this guy leave? I'm still in high spirits. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed. Her eyes flashed with wisdom. This guy probably didn't expect Yunju's strength to be so strong. He judged the situation and decided to stop. Bai Liuchuan was a narrow-minded person, but he wasn't stupid either. He understood that if they didn't immediately gain the upper hand in such a situation, the situation would only get worse and not better. He knows how to judge the situation. He does have some ability. Di Beichen spoke slowly. He also agreed with Hongzhuang's point of view. Other than this, there was no other reason. It's a pity that Yun Xiaoman is still alive. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes gradually sharpened. Although Yun Xiaoman wasn't strong, she was a person who was good at stirring up trouble. From Guan Yi's previous attitude, she could already see that if it wasn't for Yun Xiaoman's incitement, Guan Yi wouldn't have done such a thing. In short, leaving Yun Xiaoman alive was a problem. Hongzhuang, if you want to take her life, it's only a matter of time. Shengguan Yingying walked over. I think this guy looks like he's going to die young. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was originally a little gloomy, couldn't help but chuckle after hearing this. Yingying, when did you learn how to read people's faces? Haha, I just happened to learn about it. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that Bailey Yunyan and Little Blossom were injured. She quickly walked over and asked, "How are your injuries?" "I'm fine." Bailey Yunyan shook her head. "It's just a small injury. It won't affect me." Bailey Hongzhuang examined him carefully and was relieved when she found that his injuries were not serious. Previously it was 2 against 1 after all. Even though they had cultivated with their masters for so long and their strength had improved tremendously, cultivators who could ascend to Cloud City must have had their own fortuitous encounters, and their trump cards were all extremely powerful. Therefore, even if everyone managed to withstand the attacks, it was inevitable that they would be injured. Little Blossom also took a medicinal pill. For them, as long as it wasn't a fatal injury, it wouldn't take long for them to recover. "Beichen, what do we do now?" Ziren raised his eyes and looked at Di Beichen. He noticed that Bai Luchuan was heading in the direction where they had previously hunted demons. If they were to go there again, they would have to be on guard against the other party's actions at all times. If the other party took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack while they were fighting the demons, it would be really troublesome. Chapter 6603. Another place? Hearing this, everyone was a little surprised. "Beichen, could it be that you know a lot about the Demon Slaughter Mountain Range?" At this time Zhong Limu also came over. "We also bought the map of the Demon Slaughter Mountain Range and the so-called strategy to get points, but after coming here we found that the situation didn't match at all. It was simply useless." "Isn't that so? I believed it at first, but I heard that this thing is a version from several years ago. Not only have the number and species of monsters changed a lot, even the terrain is not the same." Ziren couldn't help but complain. He knew that the price of these things couldn't be so cheap. Now it seemed that this was the so-called cheap things are not good. "I have a real introduction to the strategy in my hands." Di Beichen smiled faintly. Gong Jun's friend was obviously not simple. He could even get such a thing. He must have been to the Demon Slaughter Mountain Range in person. He didn't know how the other party did it. He could even find some secret places. However, in the Immortal region there were countless talented people. Everyone had their own methods. "Really?" Ziren said in surprise. Di Beichen just glanced at him. Ziren said, "Well, you don't need to lie at all. Let me introduce you. This is my friend, Gong Jun." Di Beichen walked to Gong Jun's side and introduced him to everyone. "He is the shopkeeper of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. You should know him a little." We know. Since we fought together we are good friends." "Your friends are our friends," Yi Zichen said. Everyone smiled and welcomed Gong Jun's addition. Since this person could become Di Beichen's friend, he must be very good. "Let me introduce you. This is my big brother, Di Xiaofeng. His wife is Bailey Yunyan." As Di Beichen introduced everyone, Gong Jun quickly remembered everyone's names. His chubby face was full of smiles. "Hello, I am the boss's follower. If there is anything you need me to do in the future, I will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire." After hearing Gong Jun's self-introduction, everyone was stunned at first, then they all laughed. This guy's personality was really interesting. "Let's go ahead and rest for a while. After we recover we will go to the next location." After Di Beichen identified the direction, he led everyone forward. At the same time, everyone in Bai Liuchuan's team kept asking questions. "Master Bai, why did we suddenly stop?" Yun Xiaoman was also a little confused. Brother died. How could you let them leave just like that?" Hearing this, Bai Liuchuan's voice was filled with anger. "If it wasn't because you weren't strong enough, why would I do this? How many people do they have in total? We have twice as many people as them, but we are the ones who have suffered more losses. If this continues, I am afraid that all of you will die there." When these words came out, everyone's heart trembled. In fact, they also understood that Bai Luchuan was telling the truth. Facing such a group of people, they didn't even have the thought of fighting. Because these guys were too strong, it made them feel very frustrated. Chapter 6604. When Yun Xiaoman saw Bai Liuchuan's anger, her eyes instantly turned red. She said timidly, "Brother Bai, When Bai Liuchuan turned his head and saw Yun Xiaoman in such a state, the anger in his heart immediately reduced by half. His voice also became gentler. "Xiaoman, don't be anxious. We will definitely avenge Guan Yi, but the current situation isn't suitable. It won't be too late for us to take action when there's a better opportunity." Hearing this, Yun Xiaoman nodded. There was still a trace of nervousness between her brows. "I'll listen to Brother Bai." A smile appeared on Bai Liuchuan's lips and his mood improved. "Jingsong, what do you think of Di Beiqin's strength?" His gaze slowly turned to the azure-robed man beside him. Bai Liuchuan's gaze also became complicated. "Young Master Bai." Jiang Jingsong cupped his hands. His handsome face was filled with seriousness. "Di Beiqin is very strong. He's a formidable opponent. Although I didn't use all my skills according to my observation, Di Beiqin also didn't use his final move." Bai Liuchuan nodded. He had also noticed this point. He said, "If we were to fight to the death, are you confident?" Jiang Jingsong fell into silence. After pondering for a long time, he said, "Not necessarily." The moment he said that, Bai Liuchuan's expression changed. He knew Jiang Jingsong's true strength very well. Other than Bai Qingli, no one in the younger generation could block his ultimate move. However, he actually said that he didn't have enough confidence to deal with Di Beiqin. It was enough to show that this man was stronger than he had imagined. "I really didn't expect this fellow to be so strong." Bai Liuchuan narrowed his eyes. "From the looks of it, we have to take the long view. We can't act rashly." At the moment, the most important thing for him was the ranking in the demon-slaying competition. Although it was a pity that Guan Yi died, he was dead. A dead person no longer had any value. If his opponent could be easily dealt with, he naturally didn't mind avenging Guan Yi. However, it wasn't worth it if he had to hurt himself. After Bailey Hongzhuang and company found a quiet place, they sat down to recover their essence energy. They weren't sure if Bai Liuchuan had other ideas. Only by adjusting their condition to the end could they best deal with danger. Bailey Yunyan and the others who were injured stayed at the side to recuperate. Di Xiaofeng wasn't injured, so he looked at Di Beiqin curiously. "Where do you want to bring us to later?" Here. Di Beiqin pointed at a place on the book and handed it to Di Xiaofeng. The latter took a look at it and saw the introduction on it. Suddenly, a trace of surprise appeared between his brows. "There's actually such a place? This place is very interesting. However, the strength of the monsters that appear is definitely not to be underestimated. If we go there, we must be extremely careful," Di Beiqin said after some thought. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to the conversation between the two and immediately had a guess. She smiled tenderly and said, "Are you talking about the changing world of monsters?" "You guessed it?" Di Xiaofeng smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "When I saw this place in the book, I found it very interesting. I felt that if I had the chance, I would definitely go and take a look." Chapter 6605. In comparison, although the place they were at before had killed a lot of monsters, the points weren't high. Not only that, if they weren't careful, they would be ambushed by other monsters. Overall, it wasn't a very good place. What's more, they had to deal with other cultivators at any time. Di Beiqin's group was originally fine, but trouble came knocking on their door. It's said that there will only be one monster in each area. The whole place is like a maze. Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. "I didn't expect the demon-slaughtering mountain range to have such a magical place. It's really interesting." Xiren also came over. After hearing Di Xiaofeng's introduction, he was the first to agree. "Such an interesting place, we must go and broaden our horizons. This place is very dangerous. If we encounter a monster that's too strong, we might lose our lives," Di Beiqin said slowly. Xiren waved his hand. "Don't scare me. Haven't we encountered a lot of things like this? Master said that I lacked the courage to fight with my life on the line. This kind of environment is quite suitable for me." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows turned slightly, and she looked at Wen Ziran with some surprise. When he said this, his face was unprecedentedly serious. It could be seen that he remembered everything that Yu Hong had said. After a short rest for half an hour, everyone set off for their destination. "This place is still a distance away from where we are. We should be able to arrive tomorrow." Di Beiqin looked at the map in his hand and judged. Everyone nodded. The two places were definitely not close. It would be good if they could arrive in one day. However, the entire demon slaughtering competition only lasted for a month. Every day was extremely precious. As she walked, a thought suddenly appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. Beichen, we haven't seen Bai Qingli. Do you think he's there? Beichen's eyes narrowed slightly. A trace of wisdom appeared in his deep eyes. He's there. Bai Qingli has always been a lone wolf. Furthermore, he has taken first place in the past few demon slaughtering competitions, so his points are very high. In other places, even if he was strong, it was impossible for Bai Luchuan to lose to him in points with so many people helping him. Therefore, I'm afraid there's no other place apart from this place. Mo Yunjua's magnetic and cold voice rang out. If that's the case, if we stay here until the end of the competition, we should have accumulated quite a lot of points. That makes sense. Xiren's eyes lit up. I hope Bai Luchuan doesn't appear again. It's too troublesome. Bai Luchuan might think so too, Shangguan Yingying said with a smile. The night passed and the next day, everyone finally arrived at their destination. Xiren looked at the towering mountain in front of him, his eyes filled with doubt. Beichen, are you sure this is the place? Not bad, this is the place. Beichen put away the book, and a satisfied smile appeared on his handsome face. Bailey Yunyan was curious. This is only a mountain. How can there be demons? Could these demons be on the mountain? At this moment, Di Xiaofeng's gaze landed on an inconspicuous small cave in the distance. Could it be that the mystery is in this cave? Beichen smiled faintly. That's right. It's over there. Chapter 6606. After everyone entered the cave, they suddenly noticed that there were many passages in front of them. It was obvious that these different passages led to different places. Wow, there are so many passages right after we entered. It's too hard to choose. Xiren said in surprise. Bai Li Yanche chuckled. This passage is not like the inheritances we encountered before where we would lose our lives if we took the wrong path. Since this is a maze, there must be many intersections. However, I believe that many of the passages will intersect. Di Xiaofeng nodded. That's right, this place is a large-scale maze. Every path we take may lead to different demons with different strengths. Thinking about it carefully, this is indeed a good place to train. Training in other places would definitely not be as good as here. Let's go in separately. Master told us to train separately. It's already against the rules for so many of us to gather together. Shangguan Yingying said. Then we'll still be in a group of two? Xiao Xuanzi asked. At this moment, Zhong Limu shook his head. There are so many passages here. It's enough for each of us to take one. Since we're out to train, we'll help each other. There will always be a thought in our hearts, so we won't try our best. This way we won't be able to achieve the effect that Master said. I think it's better for us to go separately. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. In terms of courage, Zhong Limu was definitely the first. Zhong Li, if Senior were here to hear this, he would definitely be very happy. Zhong Limu scratched his head and smiled. If Grandpa were here, he would definitely say that my progress is too slow. I want to increase my cultivation as soon as possible and break through to the elementary immortal realm. This way when I go back to see Grandpa he will be pleased. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all showed a kind smile. Zhong Limu was different from them. He only wanted to cultivate well and live up to Senior Zhong Li's expectations. Other than that he had no other thoughts. At this moment, Xiren suddenly sighed. I'm thinking of finding a wife for Zhong Li as soon as possible. This way he won't urge us to go on a life and death adventure every day. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but laugh. You really know how to come up with a dirty trick. I'm telling the truth. Xiren had a serious look on his face. When that time comes we won't even need to stop them. Someone will do it for us. Alright, since everyone has decided, let's go in. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped everyone from fooling around. Bai Qingli has been training here alone for the past few years, so we naturally have nothing to be afraid of. As soon as he said this, everyone's expression turned serious. Along the way they had their own pride. Since others could do it, they believed that they could do it as well. That's great. Let's see who gets more points. Di Xiaofeng's playful gaze swept across everyone. How's the competition? Alright. No problem. I'm afraid you won't compete. Everyone nodded in agreement and immediately stepped forward to enter the passage. However, at this moment, Gong Jun's voice slowly rang out. Boss, what should I do? Chapter 6607. Why don't you come with me? Beichen asked. Since Gong Jun had come here with them, there was nowhere else for him to go. It was too dangerous to be alone. At least it was much safer to be with him. Gong Jun, why don't you go with Di Baichen? Bailey Hongzhuang also said, actually your cultivation isn't weak. It's just that you don't have many opportunities to fight normally. If you can find an opportunity to gain experience, it wouldn't be bad. She had already noticed Gong Jun's situation when she was fighting with Bai Luchuan and the others. Not to mention anything else, the fact that he was able to dodge nimbly under the other party's probing attacks without being injured already proved his talent and ability in this area. As long as he practiced more, this area wouldn't become his shortcoming. Gong Jun pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "Boss, can you let me take a look at that booklet?" "Why not?" Di Baichen handed the booklet to Gong Jun. "This is yours, but what do you want to see?" Gong Jun chuckled. "Before I participated in the competition, that old fellow said that there was a strategy for me recorded in here. He said that I could pass with my strength. Let me see if there is one here. If there is, then there's no need to go through so much trouble." Hearing this, everyone's eyes widened as a look of surprise appeared on their faces. There's actually someone so powerful? Xiren was stunned. It's wonderful to have such a friend. Gong Jun flipped through the booklet for a moment before his eyes lit up. He said, "This old fellow really didn't disappoint me. He actually recorded it." "Really?" Di Baichen couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at the contents of the booklet that Gong Jun was reading. As expected, it marked the path that he could take. Gong Jun nodded his head. "This guy does have a conscience. Boss, I'll take this path." "Are you sure?" Di Baichen was a little worried. No one can be sure of the monsters that appear in this maze. Although your friend is very capable, if something goes wrong, don't worry, this guy won't trick me. Gong Jun's face was full of confidence. "I'm a man after all. Although I'm not as strong as everyone else, I should really train myself. Otherwise, with my appearance, won't I always trouble you when I follow boss around in the future?" "Gong Jun, don't try to show off if you can't do it." Bailey Hongzhuang asked with concern. "If there is any danger, it will be a matter of life and death." "Madam, I know what to do." Seeing that Gong Jun had already made up his mind, no one tried to persuade him any further. Everyone had their own thoughts, and it was good that Gong Jun was willing to cultivate properly. "Let's go." In the next instant, everyone chose a path and walked in without hesitation. Xiao Hei sat on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. She wanted to simply choose another path and walk on her own, but she had been by her master's side for so many years that she was used to it. She really didn't want to leave. The inside of the path was pitch black, and rich dark energy was constantly spreading. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. This environment was really suitable for her to cultivate. After hunting monsters, even if she cultivated here, the effect would be much better than outside. In the upper realm, there were fewer dark energy places, but in the immortal region there were more of them. Chapter 6608. The mountain walls were slightly damp and without any light. The path was very dark and gloomy. It was clearly not a very long path, but in this extremely dark environment, it seemed especially long. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked forward. She had already understood the situation here from the book. Every path would lead to demons. However, these demons were usually one at a time. Once they were dealt with, they would be able to move on. If they lost, they could only become food in the demons' stomachs. In the beginning, if they were quick enough, they would be able to escape through this path. However, after going through a series of twists and turns, it would be very difficult to return. Therefore, charging forward bravely was the best way to go about it. "Master, do you think that this place is really naturally formed?" Xiao Hei was in disbelief. "This is too strange." This place sounded like a training ground specially prepared for cultivators. However, these were all demons and did not seem to have been prepared by the people of Cloud Division City. Besides, the demons did not only appear in this place. Many cities had the same situation. This was not something that the average person could do. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. "I don't know about the rest, but this place must have been deliberately set up by someone." "Master, do you think so too?" "Demons would not appear here for no reason. However, I don't know what the person who set up this place is trying to do. Perhaps they just want to nurture some cultivators?" The reason why Bai Qingli's power had been able to rise so quickly must have something to do with this place. Just as the two of them were conversing, a beast's roar was heard from the front. This roar could be said to be deafening. Even though they were quite far away, they could feel a gust of wind blowing past. However, upon hearing this sound, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression suddenly changed. "Master, what's wrong? I feel that this sound is rather familiar." Bailey Hongzhuang mumbled to herself. Familiar? Xiaohei was puzzled. Could it be that you've heard it when you were killing those demons? But I don't feel that the roars of those demons we've encountered before were so shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. It's not those monsters. I've heard this kind of beast roar somewhere else. That's even more impossible. Xiaohei shook her head. We've never seen these monsters anywhere else. Bailey Hongzhuang was also secretly surprised, but this feeling was very strong. She quickened her pace and quickly walked forward. She wanted to see what kind of monster this was. As their line of sight gradually widened, they could vaguely see a trace of light. Bailey Hongzhuang was also able to clearly see the appearance of the demonic beast in the distance. Isn't that the giant centipede? Xiaohei was dumbfounded when she saw the monster's appearance. As expected. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. The monster in front of them was the giant centipede they had seen when they were training in the desert world. The only difference was that the centipede in front of them was much larger than the one they had seen before. Its aura was also much more shocking. In comparison, the giant centipede they had seen before was like a child who had not yet grown up. The one in front of them was a true adult centipede. Chapter 6609. Why has this giant centipede appeared here? Xiaohei was a little confused. They had always thought that the desert world and the oceanic world were just places for them to train. Even though everything in those worlds was far too realistic and had caused them to have their suspicions, they had not taken it to heart. Could it be that the other demons have come from that realm as well? Hearing Xiaohei's question, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was also pondering over this question. The Chaos Ring. How is it related to all of this? The world was so vast and there were so many realms. However, the Chaos Ring had allowed her to enter this realm. Could this be a coincidence? In a trance, a thought seemed to flash through her mind. However, it flashed through her mind too quickly and she couldn't catch it at all. Without giving her time to think carefully, the centipede roared and swept its tail towards her. Boom! Its long tail swept across the ground, creating a terrifying sound. However, the ground seemed to be made of steel and did not show any signs of damage under such power. Bailey Hongzhuang had already dodged the attack. Once the centipede noticed this, it quickly chased after her. With a long sword in hand, the woman's figure floated gracefully as she stabbed and slashed at the centipede's body, creating a sharp sound. However, she was unable to break through the centipede's defenses. Most importantly, she realized that this centipede's speed was much faster than the one she had encountered in the past. It was clearly a very large body, but its speed and agility had exceeded her expectations. Indeed, this dark environment is more suitable for its survival. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed and a fierce look appeared in the space between her brows. This was a radiant sun-state centipede and its powers were not ordinary. However, she was not afraid. Ding ding ding. The sound of metal clashing against metal rang out continuously. The centipede was extremely fast, so Bailey Hongzhuang decided not to dodge. She had crossed swords with this centipede many times before, so she knew its weakness very well. When the centipede saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was standing motionless on the spot, its eyes lit up with joy. Then it quickly charged towards her. Roar! An astonishing roar of a beast suddenly spread out, bringing with it extreme pain. It kept rolling in the cave, and a terrifying power kept sweeping out, scattering the stones. The momentum was astonishing. Bailey Hongzhuang's white robes fluttered in the wind. The sharp sword in her hand had already pierced into the centipede's eye. Seeing the giant centipede struggling, Bailey Hongzhuang quietly watched for a moment before flying out and pulling out the sword. At the same time, she gathered her elemental energy in the long sword, causing the tip of the sword to become even sharper. The strength in her hand increased abruptly, and with a sudden burst of strength, she directly cut open the outer shell of the skull. The centipede also felt the approaching danger and quickly struggled, wanting to throw Bailey Hongzhuang off its head. However, Bailey Hongzhuang stood very steadily. After cutting open the outer shell, her elemental energy surged as she ruthlessly stabbed the sharp sword in. Poochie! A dull sound rang and the centipede's violent struggle stopped. Its body gradually fell to the ground and the entire cave quietened down. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the demonic crystal of the centipede. The blood-red demonic crystal exuded a bewitching luster. She sensed it slightly and found that the energy contained in it was much stronger than that of the centipede she had killed. Chapter 6610. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiaohei couldn't help but laugh. I reckon that Yen Che still likes to eat them. It's just that he's already in his human form. If he continues to eat these demon crystals in his current form, the scene would be a little out of place. The image of Yen Che eating demon crystals flashed across her mind. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. That's true. It's said that these demon crystals can be used to refine elixirs. After the competition is over, I'll go back and try to see if these demon crystals have any effect. Now that I think about it, I'm really envious. Back then, Xiao Bai and I cultivated as if our lives depended on it, but in the end, our cultivation speed couldn't compare to Yen Che's, who was constantly eating demon crystals. Xiao Hei shook her head and sighed. At that time, what they were most envious of was Yen Che's method of cultivation. Wasn't it very enviable that his strength could soar just by eating and eating? In fact, Gong Jun also used this method to increase his cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly smiled. But ordinary people don't have that much money to buy treasures to eat. After dealing with the giant centipede, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the identity card in her hand. As expected, this centipede gave them more points than the monsters they had killed for half a day. If it weren't for the fact that she was experienced in dealing with this kind of centipede and knew where its weakness was, ordinary cultivators would probably have to spend a lot of effort on it. If we speed up and kill monsters here, then our points might really be very high. A glimmer of joy flashed through her pitch-black phoenix eyes. The reward for first place this time was extremely generous. Naturally, they had to give it a try. After resting for a moment, she continued to walk forward. The environment in the maze was very interesting. Only the monsters were relatively spacious, and when they headed to the next place, the path became very narrow. This path is really strange. It's clearly very large, so why is it so small? Xiao Hei couldn't help but say as she looked at the pitch-black darkness in front of her. It seems that this path was purposely made. Bailey Hongzhuang smirked. If the cultivator is no match for this monster, he can take the opportunity to run into this passage. With the monster's huge body, it would definitely not be able to barge in. What's more, this cave is very mysterious. No matter how shocking the shockwaves from the battle are, this rock doesn't move at all. It's not affected at all. If it was an ordinary cave, it would have collapsed after their battle just now. Because of this, she was even more certain that this place was specially set up by someone. When Bailey Hongzhuang was hunting demons, the others were almost in the same situation. However, the demons that everyone encountered were different, and there was a slight difference in strength. Unsurprisingly, these monsters were all at the Radiant Sun realm. The only difference was their strength. 3 days later, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the monster in front of her with a hint of surprise in her eyes. Isn't this the demonic beast that Master summoned? Xiao Hei looked at the huge, sinister-looking demonic beast in front of her. Her eyes were filled with shock. I was wondering why I couldn't find out what species the demonic beast was. It's not from the immortal region, but from another plane. Chapter 66:11. The demon beasts in the desert world are demons, and the demon beasts I summoned are also demons. If there was an ocean here, would the demon beasts from the ocean world also appear here? Bailey Hongzhuang thought to herself. She had always thought that the desert world and the ocean world were not the same plane, but two completely different places. But now, could it be that this was the same place but the environment was slightly different? As this thought surfaced, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that everything was not so simple. The demon beast she summoned also came from that plane, so the Chaos Ring was not the key to every world but only to that plane? When she thought of this, she was even more certain that this might be the truth. Then, what is the relationship between the Chaos Ring and that plane? Now that the immortal region rejects everything that appears in that plane, treating it as an external enemy and desperately trying to get rid of it, then all of this rich dark energy, could it be that that is a dark attribute world? Then why are they constantly appearing in the immortal region now? Countless thoughts appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind, but she could not answer all of these thoughts. Vaguely, it seemed like something was about to break through the ground, but in the end only a bud was revealed and then disappeared. This feeling is just like in the upper realm. Dark attribute cultivators have always been rejected, but they kept working hard in order to have their own place of safety in this place. Bailey Hongzhuang muttered to herself. This situation was really quite similar. She felt that her understanding of the Chaos Ring was really too little. This ring was too miraculous. Ever since she had transmigrated, it had been helping her, and it was only now that she realized that all the functions she knew might be just a side function of the Chaos Ring. As for the real function, she might not understand it yet. Master, what's wrong? Xiaohei saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly stopped saying anything and was standing at the side in a daze, lost in thought, and could not help but ask. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang came back to her senses, shook her head and said, "Nothing?" Xiaohei did not think too deeply about it. She only said with concern, "This fellow's combat power is not simple. Master, you must not be in a daze. Otherwise you will easily get injured." Bailey Hongzhuang put aside the doubts in her heart and clenched the sharp sword in her hand. Her eyes suddenly sharpened and she rushed toward the demon. Originally she had always summoned it for her own use, but she had never really fought with it. She also wanted to know how strong this monster's combat power was. An earth-shattering roar rang out. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a gust of wind whistling past, and her footsteps came to a halt. Bailey Hongzhuang paused for a moment, then rushed forward again, the sharp sword in her hand stabbing out rapidly. Ding! Rip! The long sword slashed across the monster's body, leaving a greenish-white mark, but it did not really hurt the monster. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. This guy's skin was stronger than the demons she had killed before. With just this thick layer of skin, it was already very difficult to injure it. Her sword had already contained sword intent, but it still could not break through. The monster looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with disdain, as if mocking her attack for not having any effect. Chapter 66:12. Bailey Hongzhuang took 2 steps back and the power of darkness instantly surged outwards, following the shadows on the ground and gradually attacking the demon. The demon was very smart as well. It keenly sensed that the power of darkness was in the shadows and immediately increased its speed. In the blink of an eye, the demon had charged in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. It raised its large claws and slammed them down. Bailey Hongzhuang tumbled backwards. Just as the claws were about to crush her, the tip of her sword pointed upwards. A soft sound rang out, followed by the furious roar of the demon. Ding! The demon forced the long sword back and it fell back into Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. I never thought that this fellow's skin would be so rough and thick on the surface, but its palm would have no defense at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a cold smile as she remarked. Xiaohei stood to one side and watched as the demon grew more and more powerful. However, it was not too worried. Its master's methods have never been simple. During this fight, it had clearly noticed that its master was using this fellow to practice her latest technique. Normally, it would not be easy to find an opponent. Now that she has this demon to practice on, it was undoubtedly the best opportunity. Hence, it was not in a hurry and simply watched from the side. During this fight, Bailey Hongzhuang had discovered that these demons had a rather thorough understanding of the power of darkness. She could also learn a thing or two from this fight. Xiaohei, are you sure you don't want to try? Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes darted around as she turned towards Xiaohei. This fellow has always been lazy ever since it had arrived. It would refrain from fighting whenever it could. There's no need, master. You just have to train well. Xiaohei waved her hand as her face was filled with smiles. You're really lazy. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. From before to now, this guy's habit of being lazy really hadn't changed at all. As she gradually gained a better understanding of this demon's characteristics, she gradually found its fatal weakness. She immediately moved and the inner energy within her body instantly erupted. A great killing move was quietly formed. Boom! The monster was suddenly sent flying by Bailey Hongzhuang's attack. A large hole had already appeared in its vital part. It was obviously going to die soon. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly took out the demon crystal and placed it into her chaos ring. She then sat down at the side. After fighting for such a long time, she had exhausted a lot of energy. She needed to rest for a while to recover. While she was resting, she suddenly sensed the fluctuations of a battle in front of her. She could also vaguely hear the sounds of people talking. However, due to the distance, he couldn't hear it clearly. Master, there's someone ahead. Xiaohei ran to the entrance of the cave and leaned against the wall to listen to the sounds on the other side. We've been here for a few days, but we haven't met a single person. Bailey Hongzhuang also had a hint of curiosity in her eyes. From the sound of it, it seems like the two of them are enemies. Even if they couldn't hear it clearly, they could still make some guesses from the speed of their conversation and the fluctuations of their battle. Master, could it be that they're not working together to fight against the demon? Would you talk so much when you're working together with your friends? Bailey Hongzhuang asked in return. Hearing this, Xiaohei was stunned. She immediately understood. I understand. However, it's also possible that they're fighting over the demon crystal or points. Chapter 66:13. Anyone who killed a demon beast here would gain a lot of points. If someone happened to pass through the passageway and saw the other party about to defeat the demon beast, it wasn't impossible for them to take the opportunity to snatch the points. Bailey Hongzhuang quickened her pace as she led Xiaohei forward. She wondered if one of them would be among them. Not only was this place suitable for cultivators to raise their cultivation level, but it was also suitable for cultivators to earn points. Even if it was filled with danger, there would definitely be many cultivators who came here. As Bailey Hongzhuang approached, she realized that the situation was more exciting than she had imagined. It turned out that a cultivator was facing the siege of 3 cultivators. The demons here had already been killed, but the 3 cultivators were ruthlessly attacking the man. The besieged man was dressed in a light green robe. His figure was elegant, and his strength was extraordinary. He didn't immediately retreat under the siege of the 3. Instead, he was able to persist. It was obvious that his strength wasn't simple. However, as time passed, the man also showed signs of being suppressed. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the 3 people opposite her. The 3 of them weren't simple either. They were even stronger than Bai Liuchuan's subordinates. Under such circumstances, it wasn't easy for the man to still be able to do so. Master, from the looks of it, they seem to be seeking revenge. Xiaohei sized up the situation in front of her. The 3 of them looked like they wanted to take the life of the light cyan-robed man. Furthermore, the viciousness they revealed wasn't the state of snatching points. That's right. They're seeking revenge, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. In this demon-slaying competition, it was very normal for cultivators to die. It wasn't easy to take action normally, but here they could attack without any scruples. It was undoubtedly the best. Then what should we do? Xiaohei was secretly speechless. The other party was in full swing. It didn't seem appropriate for them to just watch, right? Salad, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. The sudden appearance of a woman naturally attracted the attention of the 4 people who were fighting. Their expressions immediately became complicated. The 3 cultivators thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was on the side of the light green man. Fear and confusion appeared between their brows. The light cyan man was only worried that she was also one of them. Originally, he was already having a hard time dealing with the attacks of 3 people. If one more person joined in, he was afraid that he would really lose his life here today. In an instant, all 4 of their gazes landed on Bailey Hongzhuang, and the atmosphere became extremely strange. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang said, "I'm just passing by." As soon as she finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang took a step forward and slowly walked past the edge. She didn't know how long these people would fight for. She couldn't stay here and waste time because of these guys. Hearing the woman's words, the light cyan-robed man immediately heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the other party wasn't a match for them, then it was a good thing. The other 3 looked at Bailey Hongzhuang suspiciously. This person appeared out of nowhere and was so calm in the face of such a situation. It was really too strange. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely avoid this situation like the plague. However, she deliberately came here. There must be something wrong with this woman. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to enter the passage, a man's voice suddenly rang out. "Stop her." Chapter 66:14. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes as she stared at the 2 men who had blocked her way. A cold light flashed across her eyes. "I've said it before, I'm just passing by." However, the 2 men chuckled. "It doesn't matter if you're just passing by. Since you've seen what's happening today, consider yourself unlucky. You're really arbitrary. Are you trying to silence me?" Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a cold smile. As expected, one look and she could tell that these guys were not good people. "That's right, we want to silence you. Who told you to be so unlucky?" The man was very calm. Their actions today were carried out in secret. It was because they knew that this person was here that they had risked their lives to come here. As long as they could kill this person, they would have a meteoric rise in the future. However, there was a prerequisite to this, and that was that they could not be discovered by anyone. Although this woman looked unfamiliar, if she were to expose this matter, the consequences would be unimaginable. The light green man clearly didn't expect things to turn out like this, and he was a little surprised. "I saw that the 3 of you couldn't take him down after so long. Now that I'm here, are you sure you can win?" Bailey Hongzhuang's face rippled with a smile like a spring breeze, but her eyes were like 10,000 years of ice and snow. These guys never cared about other people's lives. Even if she wasn't here, as long as these guys found her at the next cave, they would definitely take her life. Because they could not let anyone find out about this. Thinking about this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at the light green man. For something like this to happen, it was obvious that this man's position was not simple. Although she originally wanted to kill Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman quietly to prevent the Wanbao Pavilion from coming back to cause trouble, she didn't care too much about this matter before it was carried out in secret. Although it would be troublesome, it wouldn't be to this extent. The three men in front of her were different. From their expressions, she could tell that this matter could not be spread. Presumably, when they made this decision, they must have thought about it for a long time. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, the three people's faces changed slightly. This was also what they were worried about. However, when they saw the woman's disdainful look, the anger in their hearts surged. This woman was actually looking down on them? Who do you think you are? How arrogant. The man snorted coldly. Let me get rid of you first. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant. You two stop him. Don't let him escape. I'll deal with this woman first. The other two nodded. All right. In the next moment, the man threw a punch at Bailey Hongzhuang. He understood that any cultivator who appeared here would not be too weak. However, this place was not very far from the entrance. In addition, many people had come here to explore before. Perhaps this woman was lucky and the monsters she passed through were not strong. Or perhaps the monsters in front of him had been taken away by others. A mere woman, even if her strength wasn't bad, was definitely not a match for him. When the light green man saw this scene, he could not help but say, "The person you want to kill is me. It has nothing to do with her." Chapter 66:15. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed when she saw the man's attack. At the same time, she raised her hand to meet the attack. The man in light green wanted to help Bailey Hongzhuang when he heard the woman's calm voice, "Let's deal with your side first. You should have no problems dealing with these two people." Hearing this, the man's eyes flashed with astonishment. Even at a time like this, the woman was not flustered at all. Her calm and indifferent demeanor did not show any signs of nervousness. Instead, it was as if she had seen through everything and exuded a sense of confidence from her very bones. Does she not know that none of these three people's powers are simple? I'm sorry for dragging you into this. The space between the man's brows carried a sense of guilt. Then a thick murderous light flashed in his eyes. He stared at the two people in front of him with murderous intent. "Give me some time, I'll deal with them." Bailey Hongzhuang gently raised the corners of her lips. "All right?" When the three people saw that the two people before them had formed an alliance in the blink of an eye, the murderous intent in their eyes intensified. Wham! Bailey Hongzhuang and the man's palms collided. When they were about 20 centimeters away, the power in their palms exploded. Light and metal energy clashed, exploding into a dazzling light. However, at almost the instant they exchanged blows, the man's expression suddenly changed. Unlike his previous confidence, there was a hint of shock in his eyes. This was because he had clearly realized that this woman's powers were much more powerful than he had imagined. Thud, thud, thud. The man quickly retreated until his body touched the mountain wall before he stopped. What about me? Didn't you want to silence me?" Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a seductive smile. Her cold and distant face instantly turned enchanting like a blooming devil's snare, emitting a deadly charm. However, this mesmerizing smile was like the smile of death in the man's eyes. It sent a chill down his spine and sent a chill down his spine. If he could turn back time, he would never have stopped this woman. Because this woman's powers were enough to crush his existence. At the same time, the light green man unleashed his full strength. Previously, when he was surrounded by three people, he had to be careful. At this moment, although there were still two people in front of him, the pressure was much less than before. He had implicated this young lady for no reason. If he did not deal with these two people as soon as possible and cause the young lady to lose her life, he would not be able to absolve himself from the blame. Bang bang bang. The man's attacks were as fast as lightning, and each of his moves was like a thunderbolt. Terrifying power continued to erupt, which was completely different from the previous situation of suppression. It was only at this moment that the other two men realized that this was his true strength. Previously he had been holding back, but when he truly erupted, it was actually so terrifying. Under such circumstances, they could not even pay attention to the battle at the side. This was because they realized that after the other party erupted, even if the two of them worked together, they were still being suppressed. Such a situation was truly unimaginable. The terrifying power of lightning exploded, and the entire cave seemed to have turned into a lightning lake. Bolts of lightning struck down continuously with terrifying might. The man seemed to have turned into a god of death at this moment. Even Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but raise her eyebrows at such an attack. This fellow was indeed a formidable opponent. Chapter 66:16. Knowing that the man wouldn't have a problem dealing with the two of them, Bailey Hongzhuang was completely relieved. Coincidentally, she felt that she didn't have enough points. Zhong Yiluan's situation was still uncertain, and Bai Luchuan was already a problem. No matter what, she would never let Bai Luchuan become first place. Other than him, there was also Bai Qingli. This fellow was also an idiot. His cousin had been playing tricks behind his back, but he actually didn't know about it. Even though the three fellows in front of her had specially come to kill people with their strength, they must have killed quite a number of demons along the way. If she could snatch their points, it would probably be pretty good. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's attacks became even more vicious. Every move was swift and fierce. Bang! When the man was sent flying by Bailey Hongzhuang again, Bailey Hongzhuang took advantage of him and grabbed his neck with one hand. The man's face stiffened. Feeling the force on his neck, his face turned pale and fearful. "You don't mess around." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "What do you think counts as messing around? If you kill me, you will definitely pay the price." The man looked at the charming and enchanting face in front of him, but his heart was pounding. This woman was definitely not a kind person. She probably wouldn't show any mercy when she attacked. "I'll pay the price if I kill you?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. "Then wouldn't I have to kill you even more? Otherwise, if I let you escape, wouldn't I be in endless trouble in the future?" The man's expression stiffened. From the faint teasing look in the woman's eyes, he knew that this woman was teasing him. He quietly turned his gaze. He originally thought that if the other two could defeat each other, they would be able to spare some effort to save him. However, when he turned his gaze, he saw that the other two had been completely suppressed. From the looks of it, it was impossible to turn the tables. They were clearly just a little bit away from completing this mission and rising to the top. However, because of a single step, because of a variable, they had ended up in such an outcome. All of this was because of this woman. Just as the man was about to explode with rage, the woman's nonchalant voice sounded. "Give me your points." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She glanced at the identity card on the man's waist. As expected, his points were very good. Hearing this, the man really wanted to strangle the woman in front of him. "What? You're not willing?" The man snorted coldly. "Now that things have come to this, the outcome is set. No matter what happens, there won't be any changes. Why should I give you the points? That's not necessarily true." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "The outcome hasn't been decided yet." As soon as these words came out, the man was slightly taken aback. Suddenly, a strange light appeared in his eyes. "So, you mean as long as I give you the points, you'll let me go?" The man looked at Bailey Hongzhuang expectantly. "As long as you agree not to mention my points, even their points will be given to you." Now, he didn't want any information to be exposed. As long as he could complete this mission, the three of them could escape to a faraway place. If they were in another city, who would be able to implicate them in this matter? As long as they could get everything that they deserved, that would be enough. Chapter 66:17. You've been in this place for so long, yet you're still so naive? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows. If it were you, would you let go of someone who had threatened to kill you? The man was stunned. The excitement on his face quickly dissipated and was replaced by anger. "So everything you said just now was just a joke?" "No." Bailey Hongzhuang stretched out her index finger and shook it. Her slender finger was like white tofu and water could be squeezed out of it at any time. "You can choose a different way to die." The man sneered. "There's no need. Don't blame me for not reminding you. I have many ways to torture people. If you have to suffer such torture before you die, it won't be an ordinary kind of misery." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head, a trace of sigh in her eyes. "Pitiful, really pitiful. Trying to scare me? That won't work." The man stared coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang. "If you want to kill me, then kill me. I won't let you have your way. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, I'll fulfill your wish." Bailey Hongzhuang took out a pill and stuffed it into the man's mouth. With a little force from her right hand, the pill was swallowed uncontrollably. Even though he was already mentally prepared, the man's expression changed abruptly. He had thought that this woman was just saying it. After all, when faced with a person who was about to die, no one would be willing to waste a pill. But this woman didn't play by the rules at all. What did you feed me? I've always kept my word. Since you want to die in a different way, I'll naturally fulfill your wish. Bailey Hongzhuang released the man and slowly walked to the side. She looked over and saw that the man in light green was about to finish his battle. When the man saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had released him just like that, he was momentarily at a loss. This woman was just too strange. In the next moment, the man charged towards Bailey Hongzhuang again. Even if I'm going to die, I'll drag you down with me. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly on the spot. She watched as the man charged towards her but didn't react. Bang! The man threw a punch at her. Bailey Hongzhuang casually waved her hand and the wind from her palm sent the man flying. When he landed on the ground again, he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was clear that Bailey Hongzhuang's move was much weaker than before, but the injury it caused to him was the most serious. After a moment, the man realized that he had lost his cultivation. Without Yuan Qi, he was no different from an ordinary person. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack. On the other hand, the two people who were being pressured by the light cyan-clothed man also had ugly expressions when they noticed what had happened to this person. One wrong move and the whole game was lost. In the current situation, it was absolutely impossible for them to kill him. The two of them looked at each other and without any hesitation they turned around and ran into the tunnel. The two of them together couldn't even deal with one person. Once that woman joined in, the two of them could only die here. The man in light green robes quickly followed after them when he saw what they were doing. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang prepared to walk to the other side. "Master, are we leaving just like that?" Xiaohei asked in shock. Chapter 66:18. That light cyan-robed man went to chase after the other two. I wonder if he'll be in danger? Don't worry, that man is very strong. It won't be a problem for him to deal with the two of them. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. Along the way, she had seen a few experts and understood that the cultivators of the immortal region were extraordinary. Bai Liuchuan's strength was not weak, and the cyan-robed man beside him was not simple either. Now that she saw another one, it was really a place full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. The immortal region of chaos was already like this. Who knew how terrifying the immortal region would be? When the man saw that Bailey Hongzhuang ignored him and left just like that, he couldn't help but feel anxious. You're leaving just like that? Bailey Hongzhuang turned her eyes. If I don't leave, should I stay here and chat with you? I'm willing to give you my points and all my cultivation resources. I wonder if you can let me live? The man's face was full of pleading. I didn't recognize Mount Tai before. Actually, there is no enmity between me and you. Let me live. I will definitely remember your kindness in the future. How about it? You're right. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped and turned to walk in the man's direction. The man was delighted. You are indeed a heroine. Your magnanimity is admirable. Bailey Hongzhuang took the storage ring from the man's hand and found that the man had taken the initiative to erase the imprint on the storage ring. With a quick glance, he found that this guy's family was indeed quite rich. After Bailey Hongzhuang accepted the storage ring and points, the man looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Please give me the antidote. What antidote? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. The man was slightly stunned. Miss, you can't go back on your word. After you die, this storage ring will be mine. What kind of payment is that? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and sighed. It seems that your brain was damaged just now. You. The man's eyes widened as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang angrily. He had never thought that this woman would go back on her words and even speak as if it was a matter of course. A mouthful of blood spurted out uncontrollably, and the man immediately fell to the ground. It was as if he was breathing more than he was inhaling. Master, this move of yours is truly powerful. Xiaohei gave her a thumbs up. I don't think this guy was poisoned to death. Instead, he was angered to death by you. Unrighteousness leads to self-destruction. Everything has a cause and effect. This is what he brought upon himself. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was cold and there was no trace of guilt in her eyes. This guy deserved it. However, right when they were about to leave, a deafening sound suddenly resounded. Bang! The sound of a huge explosion swept across the area. It was quite far away, but it sounded as if it had exploded right next to their ears. Bailey Hongzhuang turned towards the source of the sound. That should be the direction in which the man in light green had chased after the other two men. Master, what's going on? Xiao Hei's face was filled with shock. Even if he had thrown explosives, the sound shouldn't have been so shocking. I'm afraid that something big has happened. Chapter 66:19. Master, even if that man is more powerful, he shouldn't have been able to unleash such a terrifying attack, right? Xiao Hei's face was filled with confusion. Although it had felt that the man was not powerful enough, it did not think that he was more powerful than its master. However, when it heard the terrifying commotion and the continuous waves of air, it felt that if this man was able to unleash such an attack, he must be a first-rate God's chosen one. This attack shouldn't have been unleashed by him. Not him? Xiao Hei was shocked. Could it be that someone else has gone after him? Just how hateful is this man that so many people want to kill him? Bailey Hongzhuang gently shook her head. If my guess is correct, the ones who had unleashed this attack should be the two people he was chasing. Xiao Hei was even more confused when she said this. Master, did I hear wrongly? How could those two people be so powerful? If they were that powerful, they wouldn't have needed to run away. They had used this sure kill attack because they had nowhere else to run? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were deep and profound. Haven't you used this sure kill attack before? You just didn't succeed. Meh. Xiao Hei's face was filled with question marks as it fell into deep thought. After a moment it suddenly understood. Its eyes focused and it exclaimed in shock, those two. They couldn't have self-destructed, could they? Bailey Hongzhuang gently nodded. That should be the case. Damn? Xiao Hei was shocked. Those two really went all out. They had actually chosen to self-destruct. They must have been forced to do it. Their powers were no match for that man. Their fate was already sealed. I just didn't think that they would choose to use this method. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was complicated. She did not know who that man in light green was. The three of them had clearly come with the intention of killing him and had made such a choice in the end. Although many cultivators have died on a daily basis, those who chose to self-destruct were few and far between. Once they self-destructed, it meant that there was no turning back. Not even their bones would remain after they died and they would be annihilated. The environment here is so unique and those two fellows suddenly self-destructed. I wonder if that man in light green will survive? Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with curiosity. She had thought that the outcome was already set. However, based on the current situation, they might have perished together. Let's go take a look and find out. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked forward. He was not very fast because of the terrifying aura of self-destruct. Even after a while, the aura of self-destruct. 2. If this guy is really dead, then he can only be considered unlucky to have met these two crazy guys. However, we can still take their storage rings. That can be considered a great harvest. Xiao Hei's eyes lit up. They had only met by chance. Naturally, there was no friendship between them. If the other party died, the items would fall into someone else's hands sooner or later. She might as well let them take advantage of it. As Bailey Hongzhuang gradually approached, the smell of blood in the air grew thicker. One could almost imagine the frightening color of blood in the previous pit. Such a terrible situation. I'm afraid that person's fate is grim, Bailey Hongzhuang thought. Chapter 66:20. Young lady. Save me. A bloody hand grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's ankle and left a bright red handprint on her white robes. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her eyes and looked at the person before her. The passageway was very dark and if one did not look carefully, one would not have noticed that someone was lying on the ground. Even though she could not see the man's face clearly with her naked eye, she could tell from his weak voice that this was the man in the light green robes. After the man had said that, his hands drooped down uncontrollably. He was clearly seriously injured and had fallen into a coma. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the man and sighed in her heart. This fellow is quite lucky to still be alive under such circumstances. He was not meant to die. Master, do you intend to save him? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. Since this person is not meant to die, why don't we save him? This person has an extraordinary status anyway. If we become his savior, he might be able to help us in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and a playful look appeared in the space between her brows. She was rather curious as to who this person was. Seeing that his master had made her decision, the child did not say anything else. Instead, he enlarged his body and carried the man to the front. The stench of blood in this place is simply too pungent. Let's hurry to the hole in front, Xiao He said. Xiao He only put the man down after they had found a relatively clean spot. As her vision returned, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that the man's injuries were extremely shocking. His skin was completely exposed and there was not a single piece of unharmed flesh on his body. His entire body was drenched in blood and it was a ghastly sight. Bailey Hongzhuang was secretly speechless. As a physician, she had seen countless people with serious injuries, but it was rare to see someone with such terrible injuries. Under such circumstances, he was still able to use all his strength to beg her to save his life. This person's will to live was extremely strong. Master, he's already in such a state. Can we still save him? Xiao Hei's lips twitched when she saw the man's expression. It naturally had no objections to saving him, but looking at the man's appearance, it was obvious that he was hanging on to his last breath. It was afraid that even if it helped, it would be difficult for him to survive. Let's try our best. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes became more serious. Since she had made up her mind to save this person, she would definitely do her best. Ever since he came to the celestial realm, although he had learned many ways to save people from his master, most of the time he used poison. The number of times he saved people was really not many. Now that this man's injuries were so serious, it was a good opportunity for her to test if her medical skills had improved. Seeing this, Xiao He nodded slightly and helped Bailey Hongzhuang. 3 days later. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He were actually sitting at the side cultivating. It had to be said that these three fellows had an abundance of cultivation resources. Not only did they have the blood spirit stones that they usually needed for cultivation, but they could also find some heavenly treasures in their storage rings. Now that they could not split themselves to hunt demons for the time being, they might as well just stay here and cultivate quietly. They were of the dark attribute to begin with. In this environment that was filled with dark attribute energy, it was very suitable for them. The speed at which their strength improved was also much faster than usual. Chapter 66-21. It would be very difficult for anyone else to solve this problem. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not pose much of a problem. As a cultivator of the dual attributes of darkness and light, not only could she absorb the power of darkness around her, she could also use the power of light to hasten the man's recovery. The Saint Spirit Crystal had played its role. After all, the Saint Spirit Crystal had been brought to the upper realm by the Saint of Light. Since it belonged to this plane, there was no need to elaborate further on its role. Under the dual effects of the Saint Spirit Crystal and her medical skills, the man's life had been saved. However, the man's injuries were too severe. It would take some time for him to regain consciousness. It had not been easy to pull the man back from the gates of hell. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally could not just leave him here. Otherwise he would die without a doubt if anyone else were to arrive. Water, a hoarse voice sounded faintly, carrying a sense of struggle and pain. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped her cultivation state and handed the water to the man. The man slowly opened his eyes and saw a beautiful woman. His eyes were filled with confusion for a moment. After feeling the pain in his body, his memories from before came back and he completely understood what had happened. "Thank you for saving me, Mississippi." The man joined his fists and his eyes were filled with gratitude. However, his actions were a little too forceful and affected the wounds on his body, causing him to frown. "It's good that you're awake." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "It seems that my medical skills have improved." The man then looked at his hands. His flesh, which had been badly mangled, had slowly healed. Although there were still some scars, it was an earth-shattering change compared to the past. Even though he had not been aware of his injuries in that dim environment, he had a rough idea based on the pain he had felt. He had thought that he would definitely die this time. However, he had vaguely heard the sound of footsteps and sensed a familiar aura. That was why he had cried out for help. However, even he did not think that this woman would really save him. After all, this young lady had acted so decisively just now. Clearly, she wasn't someone who liked to help others. The most important thing was this young lady's medical skills. Even he couldn't help but marvel at her skills. Even the most famous doctor in the city couldn't compare to her. For a moment she rejoiced. If she hadn't met this young lady, he definitely wouldn't have woken up one day. "Miss, your medical skills are truly exquisite. I truly admire you," the man said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "Since you're awake, I'm relieved. You shouldn't stay here for too long. Once you've regained your mobility, you should leave." The man nodded. With his cultivation, it was not a problem for him to wander around here, but now that his injuries were so serious, although the recovery effect was very good, it would still take some time for him to recover to normal. It was obviously not appropriate for him to continue staying here. Who are you? So many people are trying to kill you. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask, are you the city lord's son by Qingli? The man was slightly taken aback. He smiled and asked, why do you think so? Chapter 66-22. For the past few years he has always been number one. His family background is extraordinary and his strength is high. There should be many people who hate him, so it's normal for him to be hunted down. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. If you are manager Bai, then all of this can be explained. If not, then your identity should also be extraordinary. Why do you think so, miss? The man was curious. Why can't these people be sent by my enemies to kill me? Perhaps it has nothing to do with my identity. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. We have all come from the lower realms and have seen many such things. These people want to kill you even if they have to risk their lives, and they don't dare to leak this news. Obviously they are afraid of revenge. On the other hand, this also proves that your enemy has given him a lot of benefits. Otherwise they wouldn't be so desperate. The man listened to Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment and suddenly felt that what she said was very reasonable. You're right, but even I don't know who sent them. But the reason why Miss saved me, could it be that you think I'm by Qingli? The man suddenly asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. Although I think you might be this person from my point of view, I hope you're not him. Why is that? The man was surprised. If I really am by Qingli, then you saved the city lord's son. He definitely won't treat you unfairly. I don't want to think about this kind of thing. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. Seeing the man's confused look, she found it funny. I heard that Bai Qingli is obsessed with the way of the sword and doesn't understand human relationships. Even if I saved him, I'm afraid there's no friendship between us. Besides, I have a grudge with that guy. When these words came out, the man was even more surprised. I didn't expect Miss to offend the city lord's son. Then won't you be in trouble in this cloud city? Actually, I have some friendship with Bai Qingli. Why don't I help you make peace? Forget it, forget it. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I think this guy won't be able to live for long. Why do you say that, miss? The man's expression changed slightly, and a trace of concern appeared on his face. Looks like your relationship with Bai Qingli is pretty good. You actually care about him so much. The man's lips curled into a smile. We're friends after all. Besides, he's always pursued the Tao of the sword. His heart is pure. I didn't hear him mention any conflicts with others at that time. He has been in closed-door cultivation all this while and has not come out. May I know how Miss has offended him? As he spoke, the man recalled Bailey Hongzhuang's earlier words and his expression changed. Miss, are you kidding me? Earlier you clearly said that you've never seen Bai Qingli, so how can you say that you've offended her? Do you know Bai Luchuan? Of course I know. He's Bai Qingli's cousin. The two of them grew up together and have a very good relationship. Bai Luchuan is my mortal enemy, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. The man was slightly taken aback and then he laughed involuntarily. Miss, you sure are indifferent. Even Bai Luchuan is a top figure in the city. You offended him, but you don't take it to heart? I've already offended him. Besides, he was the one who took the initiative to cause trouble. Do I have to hide? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Chapter 66-23. As far as I know, although Bai Qingli has an extremely good relationship with Bai Luchuan, he might not become your enemy just because of this relationship. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her phoenix-like eyes and looked at the man with an unfathomable gaze. She heard him continue, Bai Qingli rarely interacts with others, and Bai Liuchuan's personality is the opposite. Therefore he rarely asks about Bai Liuchuan's matters. Perhaps. Bailey Hongzhuang stretched and said casually, I wonder what you mean when you said that Bai Qingli won't live for long? Since you are friends with him, I won't tell you this. In any case, even if I say it, you might not believe me. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. Clearly, she did not intend to continue this topic. Hearing this, although the man had some doubts, he did not continue to ask after a moment of silence. If you ask me, that Bai Qingli is a fool. Xiao He could not help but ridicule. His cousin is thinking about how to deal with him every day, and he actually treats him as a good brother. How laughable. Xiao He. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. What I said was the truth. Xiao He pouted. Anyway, Bai Qingli won't believe such words. He can't hear it, so it's not a big deal. After the man heard this, his expression suddenly changed. Miss, why would your contracted beast say such words? If you want to sow discord between the two of them from my point of view, I'm afraid he won't believe it at all. Young master, you're thinking too much. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. What does the relationship between the two of them have to do with me? This little beast of mine is just used to being straightforward. Just treat it as a joke and don't take it to heart. Xiao He was unhappy when she heard the man's words. She immediately said, I don't care to sow discord. It's just that Bai Qingli is stupid. Although he has been first place in the demon-slaying competition all these years, the gap between him and Bai Luchuan is getting smaller and smaller. Do you know why? This person is the result of Bai Luchuan's diligent cultivation, the man said matter-of-factly. Haha. Xiao He couldn't help but laugh. Why are you so funny? Although we haven't seen Bai Qingli's strength, we know Bai Luchuan's level. If he was really strong enough, then he wouldn't need so many people to help him kill monsters and accumulate points. What did you say? He's looking for someone to help him kill monsters? The man couldn't help but widen his eyes, unable to conceal the astonishment on his face. Isn't that right? Previously, we were forcefully pulled in by his team to help him kill demons. Relying on their numbers, they thought they were extraordinary. Their attitude was much stronger than the city lord's son, Bai Qingli. Why do you think he's trying so hard to snatch the first place? Could it be that you're like Bai Qingli, who's focused on cultivation, that your brain is fried and you can't even understand such a simple question? Alright, Xiao He. Bailey Hongzhuang carried Xiao He over. This is their family matter. There's no need for us to worry. Why do we care so much? Chapter 66-24. Following Xiao He's words, the man's expression instantly changed, revealing a sense of awkwardness and helplessness. I was too careless with my words earlier. I hope little beast won't hold it against me. Xiao He glanced at the man, her expression looking much better. Alright, I, as a big beast, am magnanimous. I won't lower myself to your level. Cough cough. The man coughed dryly. This was probably the most indescribable demonic beast he had ever met. I've already treated your injuries. You only need to recuperate for a while and you'll gradually recover. In about 2 days you'll be able to walk again. Bailey Hongzhuang looked worriedly at the man. You must be careful when you leave. Don't run into any enemies or provoke anyone else. Otherwise no one will be able to save you. Miss, are you planning to leave now? The man asked instinctively. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head gently. I'll wait until you've recovered your mobility before leaving. Otherwise, if any cultivators or demonic beasts appear, you'll definitely lose your life. Hearing this, the man sighed in relief, finally feeling at ease. Thank you, Mississippi, since I've saved you, I won't let you lose your life just like that. Otherwise, wouldn't I have saved you for nothing? Seeing the playful smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, the man's mood could not help but improve. If I hadn't met you by chance, I really wouldn't have been able to keep my life. The man's eyes were sincere and sincere. He knew very well that Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance had saved his life twice. This person was simply the benefactor of his life. I don't know how to repay you, Mississippi. I have some cultivation resources here. Why don't I give them to you as a token of my sincerity? The man took out a Chengkuan bag and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes full of sincerity. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. It's fate that we've met here this time. There's no need for this. If you don't accept it, I really can't rest easy. After this farewell, I don't know when we will meet again in the future. If I want to repay you, I'm afraid I will have to put in a lot of effort. Therefore, I want to give this to you first to express my gratitude. If we are able to meet again in the future, I will do my best to help you whenever you need me. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the man's serious expression and thought for a moment before nodding. Alright, I'll accept it. The smile on the man's lips became brighter. His face was pale due to his serious injuries, but he still looked handsome. Have a good rest first. You just woke up, so your body is not in good condition. Then I'll rest first. The man's face was slightly pale. It was already very difficult for him to say so much. Not only his body but even his mind could no longer hold on. He took out a pill and popped it into his mouth. Then he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Bailey Hongzhuang did not say anything else and continued to cultivate. The next day when the man opened his eyes again, he was in a much better state. Bailey Hongzhuang took out some food and handed it to the man. "You're very weak now. Eat something first." Looking at the delicious food in front of him, the man was stunned. Then an unconcealable look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. "I didn't think that you would bring so much food with you when you came out for training." Chapter 66-25. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but recall the scene in the abandoned immortal forest when she saw the man's shocked expression. Her smile became gentler. "That's because the elders in my family love to eat all kinds of snacks, so I'm used to bringing them with me. Although they aren't here now, it's a good habit. Otherwise you wouldn't have the luck to eat them now." The man nodded slightly. "It's all thanks to the elders. Xiaohei, come and eat too." Bailey Hongzhuang waved at Xiaohei. It was already waiting when Bailey Hongzhuang took out the food. When it heard Bailey Hongzhuang's call, it ran over immediately. As the man ate, he couldn't help but look at Xiaohei. "Miss, what kind of beast is your contracted beast? It's so strange. I've seen many amazing hands, but I've never seen one like this. It's a rare contracted beast. It's called the White Light Spirit." "I see. The world is big and there are all kinds of strange things. I've learned something new today." The man sighed and said, "Miss, according to my observation, your contracted beast seems to have broken through to the Radiant Sun stage." "That's right. Why? Do you have any questions about me?" Xiaohei turned to look at the man who was so interested in her and asked. "Among cultivators, there are very few who can raise their contracted beasts to this level. Most of the amazing hands who come from the lower realms can't raise their strength to this level. You must have your own luck to be able to cultivate until now. However, there's something I'm curious about." "What is it?" "Contract beasts that have cultivated to this level are usually able to transform into human form. I've seen some contract beasts that can transform into human form. Almost all of them face the world as human cultivators. Why are you still in beast form?" The man's eyes were filled with doubt. He wasn't spouting nonsense. He knew a few contracted beasts and understood their thoughts. After all, in the chaotic immortal realm, living in human form was much easier than living in beast form. "You really know how to rub salt into my wound." Xiaohei rolled her eyes. "If I could transform into a human, I wouldn't be in this state right now." "Why can't you transform into a human?" "Xiaohei is a special species. There are very few of them in this world. We don't know how it can take human form." Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, "Previously, we also thought that it would be able to transform after its strength had broken through. However, after a year of cultivation, it still hasn't succeeded. I wonder if it will be able to transform after breaking through to the elementary immortal stage." "Then I do have some understanding," the man said after some thought. "As far as I know, there are indeed some demonic beasts in this world that find it difficult to transform into human form. However, it is not completely impossible. It only requires one thing." "What is it?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Currently, all of her contracted beasts had transformed into human form, except for Xiaohei and Xiaobai. Although these two fellows were usually carefree and rarely talked about this as their master, she knew very well that these two fellows had always been looking forward to the day she could transform into human form. They also wanted to see how she would look like after she transformed into human form. Chapter 66-26. An illusory bead. The man said in a deep voice. "An illusory bead?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. "Judging from the name, it has something to do with transforming into a human." The man nodded slightly. "This illusory bead is a treasure to some demonic beasts that can't transform into a human. I only heard of it by chance. Do you know where I can find an illusory bead?" "I heard that the city lord of Qingyang City has an illusory bead." The man smiled faintly. "Qingyang City? I've heard of this city before. It doesn't seem to be very far from Xiyun City." Bailey Hongzhuang searched through her memories. There were many cities in the realm of chaotic immortal. When she looked at the map earlier, she only looked at the cities that were relatively close. She had some recollection of the name Qingyang City. "That's right. It's not far." Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. "However, this thing is in the hands of the city lord of Qingyang City. I'm afraid it'll be a little difficult to get the illusory bead from him. If it was an ordinary person, it would be easier. As long as she could provide a certain amount of things that the other party needed, there was a possibility of a successful exchange. Even if the other party was unwilling, they could try other methods. However, the other party was the city lord. He had a noble status and countless cultivation resources in his hands. Ordinary things wouldn't catch his eye. With her current wealth, she really didn't have any bargaining chips to exchange with the other party. There are no absolutes in this world. No matter what the situation is, we can always try. The man comforted her. If Miss needs it, I'll find a way to help Miss inquire after we return. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly surprised. She said, "Thank you very much, young master." After hearing all this, Xiao He couldn't help but feel a trace of anticipation. "Hey, are you sure this illusory bead really has such an effect? You're not lying, right? Little beast, you're my saviors. If I were to lie to you about this, wouldn't I be too heartless?" The man shook his head. "However, when you go out, you can ask around for more information about this. Will there be a lot of people asking for the illusion form bead?" Xiao He couldn't help but ask. Actually, the use of this illusory form bead is rather special. It is extremely precious for monstrous beasts that are unable to transform. However, for other people, this illusory form bead is of no use. You know the situation in the realm of chaotic immortal. There are very few cultivators who can raise their contracted beasts to this level. Most people's contracted beasts can't cultivate to this level, not to mention that most contracted beasts can directly transform. The man looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He's expressions and understood their worries. With a few words he eased the pressure. "So you don't have to be too anxious. I believe it shouldn't be too difficult. Thank you, young master, for telling me this." Bailey Hongzhuang cupped his hands. This information was indeed very useful to them. The man smiled faintly. "You're too polite. I've only told you what I know. It's nothing." Everything was as Bailey Hongzhuang had expected. 2 days later, the man had already regained his mobility. Although his injuries hadn't healed, it was already very rare for him to be able to walk. Chapter 66-27. "Thank you, Mississippi." The man stood up and said after some thought, "Miss, the reason why I was able to survive this time was all because of you. Now that I have yet to recover from my injuries, it's impossible for me to continue participating in this demon-slaying competition. Why don't I give all my points to you so that it won't be a disgrace?" Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly taken aback. She didn't expect the man to make such a decision before leaving. "I've also obtained quite a number of points these days. I originally wanted to make it into the top 10, but I didn't expect to give up on that thought because of this. Anyway, these points are useless. Miss, don't refuse." The man's face was full of smiles. He couldn't help but recall how Bailey Hongzhuang had asked the man for points. Even though they had only known each other for a few days, he felt that this woman was very interesting. When facing an enemy, she was completely infuriating. She wouldn't stop until she had squeezed out every last bit of benefit. However, when facing a friend, her attitude was completely different. This made him feel somewhat fortunate. At least the woman treated him as a friend. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a moment before handing the identity card to the man. "Since you've already said so, it would be impolite for me to refuse." A bright and moving smile bloomed on her exquisite facial features. It was as if the sun was shining and hundreds of flowers were blooming. It was bright and beautiful. When he took Bailey Hongzhuang's identity card and realized that there were only numbers on it, the man couldn't help but be shocked. "Miss, why is your identity card?" "That's why Bai Luchuan and I are enemies," Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. The man's eyes changed slightly. "So, Bai Luchuan deliberately made it so that Miss couldn't get her identity card? Other than him, how many people can do it?" The man didn't say a word as he transferred the points to the woman's identity card and handed it back. "May I know Mrs.'s name? If I find out more about the illusory form bead, I can inform Mississippi. I'm Bailey Hongzhuang." "Bailey Hongzhuang." The man muttered, "Good name. I haven't said my name until now. Actually, no need." Without waiting for the man to finish, Bailey Hongzhuang had already interrupted him. "Since your identity is special, it's fine if it's not convenient for you to say it. We've met by chance, so we're friends. If we meet again in the future, it won't be too late for you to tell me your name." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and walked towards the other end of the tunnel with Xiao He. "Young master, please be careful on your way back." The man stood there in a daze until Bailey Hongzhuang's figure disappeared into the tunnel. Then he slowly came back to his senses. His eyes also changed into a complicated smile. What an interesting woman, but I don't know if what she said is true. After walking for a long distance, Xiao He could not help but ask, Master, why didn't you hear his name? If we don't know his name, I'm afraid we won't be able to find him in the future. Why should we look for him? It's already good that he told us about the illusory form bead. As long as he gave us a direction, we can find out the rest ourselves. Besides, I already know who he is. Xiao He nodded slightly when she heard the first part of the sentence. They really didn't need to look for this man. Besides, this man had not only given them cultivation resources but also points. He was already very kind. Chapter 66-28. Master, did you say that you already know who he is? Xiao He was surprised. They didn't know many people in Shiyun City. The other party didn't state his identity, so how did Master know who he was? Looking at the dazed little guy beside her, Bailey Hongzhuang flicked its head with her index finger and said, He's Bai Qinglin. Xiao He was stunned. Isn't he Bai Qingli's friend? You believe such words? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. When I first met him, I wasn't very sure. After all, I've never seen him in person before. Furthermore, I don't know much about him. However, he's so powerful. He's training alone and has enemies chasing after him. It does match his identity. So, I probed and asked. If I wasn't sure before, then after seeing his reaction I was sure. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. If he wasn't Bai Qingli, he wouldn't have paid so much attention to Bai Liuchuan's matter. After hearing everything you said, he wouldn't have thought that you were trying to sow discord. If he's really Bai Qingli's good friend, it's normal for him to stand up for him. Xiao He was puzzled. If he's really a friend, he might be surprised, but he won't be angry or suspicious. His doubtful look clearly shows that he doesn't want to believe that a good brother he grew up with would treat him like this, so I let him hide it. At this time, if we expose him, it will seem like we're deliberately sabotaging him. Xiao He came to a realization. Then this guy is really stupid. Everything is clearly the truth, but he actually thinks that we're lying to him? After all, we've been brothers for so many years. He's never thought about it in this way. It's normal for him to be unwilling to believe it. However, this time, we've also planted a seed of doubt in his heart. I think, with his ability, he should be able to investigate all of this very soon. This guy is so stupid. I don't think so. Xiao He curled her lips. I still feel a little uncomfortable when I think about how this guy is Bai Qingli. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head with a faint smile. Actually, Bai Qingli is a smart person. Anyone who can be famous has their own methods. He just doesn't want to waste his energy on this. Based on my interaction with him, if this guy really focused his energy on other aspects, Bai Liuchuan would never be able to beat him. There were some people like this who only wanted to live a pure life, so they didn't want to be calculative about many things. Once they were calculative, it would be a bloody storm, would be a storm. Master, are you trying to kill him? Bai Liuchuan was Bai Liuchuan was Bai Liuchuan's was Bai Liuchuan she was Liuchuan? It just so happened that this guy had a huge family and business, and he had countless followers behind him. It was really troublesome to deal with him. Liuchuan have a Liuchuan? Perhaps. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were deep. Actually, it can also be said that I'm reminding him from the perspective of a friend. With such a cousin, it's only a matter of time before he cries. If he discovers it earlier, the outcome might be different. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.